Good morning. I'm Matthew Johnson, Senior Minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Rockford, Illinois. Whether you are joining us live at 10 Central on May 3rd, 2020, or later, welcome. Whether you are a member or friend of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Rockford, or a member or friend of another Unitarian Universalist congregation who's found your way here because you need worship today, or if you are exploring religion anew and have found us, welcome. Whether you are frightened, grieving, determined, curious, sad, or furious, welcome. Whoever you are and whatever brings you here, welcome. We're coming to you from the sanctuary of the church. With me today is Tim Anderson, my colleague in worship and the music director at the church, and Lindsay Dunn, our director of religious education, who you'll see in a moment. Autumn Powell, our office manager, is in the back of the hall running technology for us this morning. And our worship associate, Mary Caskey, has pre-recorded their testimony, which you'll hear later in the service. Chris Ainsworth, our membership coordinator, is at home, chiming in on the Facebook feed. And if you're watching this on Facebook, you see a comment area, and we invite you to comment, say hello. It's great to see your names pop up and see you say hello as you join the broadcast in the morning, so we know who is with us. Be present with us. Thoughtful about what you post. It's a public feed. It's easy to turn comments off if you like. You can do that if that's your preference. We will continue to follow our regular format, as we have been doing on these Sundays. Of course, some things are different. This actually is beginning to feel like our regular format. The ritual of how we worship together, the rhythm of it, the liturgy, which means the work of the people, is a source of comfort and connection for us. It is for me, and you have told me that it is for you too. So I will ring the bell, and we will worship together. We'll begin with singing. Tim's going to play and sing, and we'll put the words up on the screen wherever you are. Sing along with us. We will start with Voice Still and Small. Voice Still and Small.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
We have a new month. It is May, and we have a new song of the month. This song is by Allie Halpert. It's called Loosen, Loosen. I first heard it when Matt Meyer shared it at a conference, and I loved it. I asked him if he could lead it, and we planned for the congregation to be present together. It's a song that works well for a large group, and Tim has figured out how to do it with just him for today. So we're going to just sing the first verse. We'll put the words up on the screen of the pieces, and we're going to learn the first part today. So sing along with him.
Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go,
I am so glad that you are here for worship. If this is your first time worshiping with us, we're especially happy to have you joining us online. Welcome. Please do take a moment to like our Facebook page as a way to stay in touch, and you can also go to uurockford.org and click on the newsletter sign up, and Chris will post a link to the visitor form, which we'd love to have you fill out if you've been visiting with us online, and to learn about how to be part of our community and connect with us. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith, a beacon of truth, a fire for justice, and a warmth for the soul. As Lindsay lights our chalice here at the church, we'll speak together the covenant of our church. Love is the spirit of this church, and reason is its guide. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to serve human need. This is our covenant. Now we'll sing together our chalice response song.
May love shine forth through us today. May light of reason guide our way. May beauty, truth, and joy become a flame that burns in every one.
We gather for worship. And I invite you to breathe and be present. It is, I heard the other morning, the warmest weekend here in northern Illinois since September, and it feels like it. And to go out for a walk and keep our distance from other families and people, but to wave and see folks is a blessing. We know we have now for some time been trying to keep each other safe by keeping apart. And what we miss isn't just things to do and places to go, our usual habits and haunts, but the presence of people. For we are social creatures, apes, really, and we live in groups, and sometimes we forget. But right now we are remembering how much we need one another and how hard it is to not be together. Not that we wish to be unsafe or some ridiculous notion about disregarding the wisdom of science, but our heartache for one another is real. For community, for friendship and family. And so I hope that you will today, on this gorgeous day here, take some time to walk around. Move around, roll around, keep your space from one another, keep one another safe, but see one another and send them your blessing and your good wishes. As we did that first week when we knew we needed to be more careful when we were still here, we said, why don't we do this instead of a handshake, a little bow? But to do that with your body or with your heart as a sign of respect for one another and a sign of love. And know that we love you and we care for you. Let us worship together.
In the quiet and the stillness of the morning, in the quiet and the stillness of the day, in this quiet holy place, I find blessed peace within. In the quiet and the stillness of the morning.
Good morning. I'm Lindsay Dunn, the Director of Religious Education here at the church, and I'm glad to be with you this morning. Our story this morning is The Good Egg by Jory John and Pete Oswald, and I hope you enjoy this book as much as I do. Oh, hello. I was just rescuing this cat. Know why? because I'm a good egg. A very good egg. It's true. I do all kinds of things like I'll carry your groceries, I'll water your plants, I'll change your tires, I'll paint your house. If you need any help whatsoever, I'm your egg. I've always been a good egg. It's been this way from the start, even in my earliest days back at the store. There were a dozen of us living together under one recycled roof. There was Meg and Peg and Greg and Clegg and Shell and Shelley and Sheldon and Shelby and Egbert and Frank and other Frank. The other 11 eggs weren't on their best behavior. They weren't exactly good. They ignored their bedtime. They only ate sugary cereal. They threw tantrums. They cried for no reason. They broke their stuff on purpose. Meanwhile, I tried to take charge. I tried to fix their bad behavior. I tried to keep the peace because I was a good egg. A very good egg. Nobody seemed to care, though. Every night I was exhausted. My head felt scrambled. Then, one fateful morning, I noticed some cracks in my shell. They were everywhere. My doctor said it was from all the pressure I was putting on myself, the pressure of making sure everybody was as good as me. I was cracking up. Literally. Something had to change. I'd had enough. I told Meg and Peg and Greg and Clegg and Shell and Shelley and Sheldon and Shelby and Egbert and Frank and other Frank that I was leaving. I can't be the only good egg in a bad carton, I said. Blah, 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 they replied. I left that night. I wandered from town to town. The hours became days. The days became weeks. I lost track of time. I was alone. Out there on the road, under the stars, I really tried to focus on myself and what I needed. I took walks. I read books. I floated in the river. I wrote in my journal. I found simple moments to be quiet. I breathed in. I breathed out. I even started painting. For once, I found time for me. And guess what? Little by little, the cracks in my shell started to heal. My head no longer felt scrambled. I started to feel like myself again. So I've made a big decision. I'm returning to my old carton and my friends. Besides, I'm kind of lonely out here. This time, I know what I need to do. I'll try not to worry so much. I'll be good to my fellow eggs while also being good to myself. Here we go. Everybody missed me, and I missed them too. Hello, Meg. Howdy, Peg. Hey, Greg. Greetings, Clegg. What's up, Shell? Aloha, Shelly. Heyo, Sheldon. Hi, Shelby. Good day, Egbert. What's happening, Frank? Howdy do, other Frank. Sure, every once in a while, somebody's still a little bit bad, but it's not like before. Here's what I realized. The other eggs aren't perfect, and I don't have to be either. I'm okay with that. Yep, the old carton is back together. We're a solid dozen again. It's good to be home.
Thank you, Lindsay. That's a story that some of us in particular may need to hear these days. They don't have to be perfect, and you don't either. Here's where we're at as a congregation. We continue to be on the stay-at-home order from the governor until at least May 31st. We are all anticipating here that religious community, multi-generational community that includes and welcomes all people will be one of the last things to return to in-person activity. So we are planning on how we connect with each other online and we'll be thinking about some small groups as the conditions might change. But we are thinking of you. And please check in with each other. If you're thinking of someone you usually see at coffee hour, call them up, send a note, reach out. It has been so gratifying to hear from you as when you have been doing that. Just yesterday, somebody told me that they had been thinking of someone they see at coffee hour, so they had called them and checked in and found out how they were. Keep doing that kind of thing. Or pick a name at random from the directory and check in. Please reach out to me if you need anything. If you're a member of the church and you got laid off or lost tip or gig income, or struggling economically, emotionally, spiritually, let me know. I'm working from home mostly, and most of the staff is, but we have email and phone and video conference, and we are here for you. We've been reflecting on what's working as a congregation as we try to figure everything out and refigure out how to do church in 6 weeks after having done it mostly in pretty similar ways for a couple of decades. So what we've discovered is that our congregation responds well to engaging around content. In the beginning, we needed just kind of check-ins, but now folks are ready to learn things and grow things in this context. So we're going to restart a Wonderful Wednesday. We did one a couple weeks ago on Victory Gardens, and I'm going to lead a Wonderful Wednesday this Wednesday at 7 o'clock. The meeting ID is in the Kairos. We're using the same meeting ID for Wonderful Wednesday and for coffee hour. We're going to try to be consistent about our meeting IDs. And that's going to be an introduction to spiritual practice. So I have a rubric I can share with you about how to think about different parts of spiritual practice and spiritual development and growth as a lifelong journey. So 7 o'clock, everybody's welcome on Wednesday. We will have coffee hour right after service online, so do join the Zoom meeting, and we'd love to see you. We'll have some questions to discuss, so it's not just check-in, although you'll get a chance to kind of see people's faces and see how one another is doing. Next week, we had scheduled our flower celebration to correspond with Mother's Day next week, and we're going to still do that. So send me pictures of your flowers, and we'll have a virtual flower celebration and honor the teachings of Norbert Kupek about the importance of beauty and diversity in our lives. You can send those to me by email, and we'll create a little slideshow of your pictures. And if you want to hold up the flowers next to you or have them so that we can see you too, if you're game for that, that's lovely. Every week we take up an offering to support the work of justice and mercy in the world. The Social Justice Committee chooses a different organization every week, and 80% of what we collect from the Share the Plate offering will go to that. And this week is the West Side Showroom. They were just getting up off the ground at the North End Market and the North End Square to have community theater and to engage local residents and do justice-focused kind of plays and presentations. They had local folks write plays about justice questions. And of course, we can offer them our support as they try to figure out how to get through this time. You can give online by texting the number on the screen or by going to UURockford.com/donate to make a Share the Plate gift. That's also where you can go and select the operating fund or the annual pledge in order to make your regular gift to the church. If you're in the habit of giving on Sunday in particular, don't forget that you can do it through that online or send a check to the church. We are getting our mail. The offering will now be given and received.
I find the Sabbath a true blessing. Although I don't necessarily call it Sabbath, Sunday has always been a day to kick back, relax, and pause. Pause. Just pause. Rest. So I was delighted when I started looking up where the first words of Sabbath were used and found at least 3 Bible references. One in Genesis, of course, God resting on the 7th day of creation. And of course, number 2 in Exodus, one of the 10 commandments, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Then I also found a verse I liked in Mark, which says that Sabbath was made for humankind, not humankind for the Sabbath. It's for us, our spirit, maybe more important now than ever before. As a child on Sundays, I loved the chance to roughhouse with my dad, and was happy to learn years later that the Caskey-Connolly household had what they called Sunday tricks, basically roughhousing a chance to play with Dad. Then, fast forward to when I found myself too busy, too many irons in the fire, so much responsibility, so many things I just plain had to or wanted to do. It was a gift to stop. I needed a day of rest. Yes, it was for me. Sabbath, part of humankind. It's then I could lay back, breathe deep, be fully awake, aware of all there is, all that may be. When I was working, I have to confess, I didn't always come to church. That didn't have to be part of my Sabbath. Often, when some kind of peace or rest is elusive, I repeat the last words of Wendell Berry's The Peace of Wild Things. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. And I like the words of E. E. Cummings. I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for leaping greenly spirits of trees and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes.
We'll continue singing this morning. We're going to sing the song Find a Stillness, a beautiful song written by Carl Seberg and set to a Transylvanian Unitarian hymn tune. So put the words up on the screen and you can sing along with him at home.
Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
We have 2 readings this morning, And the first is a poem by Pablo Neruda entitled Keeping Quiet in English, but we're going to begin with the original in Spanish. And we're blessed, of course, to have Tim Anderson, our music director, who's also a professor of Spanish, to share it with us.
A callarse, por Pablo Neruda. Ahora contaremos 12 y nos quedamos todos quietos. Por una vez sobre la tierra no hablemos en ningún idioma. Por un segundo detengámonos, no movamos tanto los brazos. Sería un minuto fragante, sin prisa, sin locomotoras. Todos estaríamos juntos en una inquietud instantánea. Los pescadores del mar frío no harían daño a las ballenas, y el trabajador de la sal miraría sus manos rotas. Los que preparan guerras verdes, guerras de gas, guerras de fuego, victorias sin sobrevivientes, se pondrían un traje puro y andarían con sus hermanos por la sombra, sin hacer nada. No se confunda lo que quiero con la inacción definitiva. La vida es solo lo que se hace. No quiero nada con la muerte. Si no pudimos ser unánimes moviendo tanto nuestras vidas, tal vez no hacer nada una vez. Tal vez un gran silencio pueda interrumpir esta tristeza, no entendernos jamás y amenazarnos con la muerte. Tal vez la tierra nos enseñe cuando todo parece muerto y luego todo estaba vivo. Ahora contaré hasta 12 y tú te callas y me voy.
And the English translation by Stephen Mitchell. Now we will all count to 12, and we will all keep still. This one time upon the earth, let's not speak any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be a delicious moment. Without hurry, without locomotives, all of us would be together in a sudden uneasiness. The fisherman in the cold sea would do no harm to the whales, and the peasant gathering salt would look at his torn hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars of gas, wars of fire, victories without survivors, would put on clean clothing and would walk alongside their brothers in the shade without doing a thing. What I want shouldn't be confused with final inactivity. Life alone is what matters. I want nothing to do with death. If we weren't unanimous about keeping our lives so much in motion, if we could perhaps do nothing for once, perhaps a great silence would interrupt this sadness, this never understanding ourselves and threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth is teaching us when everything seems to be dead and everything is alive. Now, I will count to 12, and you keep quiet, and I'll go. The second reading are excerpts from the book Sabbath as Resistance by Walter Brueggemann. Walter Brueggemann is one of the foremost scholars of the role of the prophets in the Hebrew Scriptures and in the Christian Scriptures. I love his writing, his essays, and his preaching, and these excerpts give you a sense of his focus and his work from his book, Sabbath as Resistance. Multitasking is the drive to be more than we are, to control more than we do, to extend our power and our effectiveness. Such practice yields a divided self, with full attention given to nothing. The rat race of such predation and usurpation is a relentlessness that issues inescapably in anxiety that is often at the edge of being unmanageable. When pursued vigorously enough, moreover, one is propelled to violence against the neighbor in eagerness for what properly belongs to the neighbor. In our own contemporary context of the rat race of anxiety, the celebration of Sabbath is an act of both resistance and alternative. It is resistance because it is a visible insistence that our lives are not defined by the production and consumption of commodity goods. But Sabbath is not only resistance, it is alternative. It is an alternative to the demanding, chattering, pervasive presence of advertising and its great liturgical claim of professional sports that devour all our rest time. And I invite you to join in a time of centering, a rest. You are enough. Where you are, when you are enough. So I invite you to breathe. The Sabbath can happen at any time. When we hear the bird song, when we feel our breath, when we stop trying so hard, when we take a moment to return to ourselves, to remember we don't have to carry the whole world in our bones and in our muscles. That day, that moment, all is holy and you are holy. That sweet day can be right now. Breathe.
Sweet is the day of sacred rest. No mortal cares shall seize my breast. Oh, may my heart in tune be found, like David's harp of solemn sound. Then shall I share a glorious part, when grace has well refined my heart, and fresh supplies of joy are shed, like holy oil to cheer my find sweet employ in that eternal world of joy, in that eternal world of joy.
Gorgeous. Is that tune from Southern Harmony? Is that what that's based on?
It's The Lone Wild Bird.
The Lone Wild Bird, yeah.
Prospect is the tune.
The tune. Words by Isaac Watts. Tune, American folk tune. Amazing these things can come together. If we weren't unanimous about keeping our lives so much in motion, writes the poet, if we could perhaps do nothing for once, perhaps a great silence would interrupt this sadness. Neruda writes of opening ourselves to life, not death, through silence, to life, to paying attention. He writes, too, in the context of a Chilean regime of death, of disappearances, of horrors, and what it might mean to be silent, to keep quiet, so that we might feel, might notice the power of life instead of death. Which is to say, as Walter Brueggemann notes, that the Sabbath, what Isaac Watts calls the day free from mortal cares, is an act of resistance and alternative. A resistance to the workaholic commodity culture that measures our value in production, an act of alternative. To imagine, to live for a moment, the beloved community, the eternal world of joy, when we might be present to the holy, each other, and to the world without as much anxiety and violence. When this started, when the stay-at-home orders came down, you know the things we sold out of. Toilet paper, for one, and yeast. You still can't get yeast. You go to the grocery store, can't get it. We all thought it. I'm going to bake. We're going to do so much baking now that we're home. And you know what else we thought in mid-March? The world will pause and we'll be still. We'll take that Sabbath and we'll step off the rat race. We'll stop trying to multitask. We'll focus more on compassion than on production and consumption. Ha! Ha! Or as they say, sweet summer child. That is not what happened for some of us. A lot of people who bought yeast haven't had time to bake a loaf. We're going to talk more specifically about parents next week, and mamas in particular, but my beloveds, oh my God. There was a headline I saw, a story I started reading the other day, someone had posted it, and about how hard this is, about the demand to work and parent and be a spouse and keep up with friends and family and bake and be crafty and productive and all this time. And the article didn't even talk about the emotional stress of trying to survive a pandemic. The article was titled, "I Feel Like I Have 5 Jobs." The article was dated March 20th. It had been a few days for a few folks on March 20th. Now it's May 3rd, and time stretches out before us, wondering, how long, Lord, how long? Even if you are not trying to manage young children, if you are working from home, the rest is no. There's no rest. There's no Sabbath. I mean, your work computer is right there. So what if it's Sunday at 3 or Tuesday night at 10 p.m. or 6 a.m. on a Tuesday? Why not get some work done? At least you have a job, right? We've been trained to think that. And yes, the situation is very different for those who are not working. If you are laid off or furloughed, that sucks. It's hard. And what do? You go look for a job as if there are are any? Do you just wait it out? How do you mark the time, have a schedule and a plan? What do you do? And if you're retired, and I know a lot of you are, you've built a life with a schedule. You volunteer on this day, you take care of grandchildren on this day, you have a class once a week, a set of things to do, and places to go. It's what you worked for all these years so that you could fill your time with what matters to you, so you could build your schedule your way. And we're all left wondering, what day is it? Autumn, will you put up that picture of Governor Cuomo at the press conference for a second? I saw this. What day is today? A question for the ages. Okay, we'll come back to the main room. What day is today? Sweet is the day of sacred rest. Sweet is the day of sacred rest. But a lot of us, we don't rest, do we? Not as much as we should. We're wired for consumption and production, for mortal concerns, for the news cycle, and planned obsolescence. We are told implicitly and explicitly that our worth depends on our productivity, that valuable people work all the time. Important people don't sleep, they work. You can rest when you're dead. What a phrase. So on. Some states are making clear if they lift the stay-at-home order and you refuse to go back to work because you don't think it's safe, then it is a voluntary quit. That's the language, and you don't get unemployment insurance. The man who represents, and I use that word represents very loosely, most of us, me and this congregation's physical location, and a lot of people who are part of this congregation in the Illinois State House, that man thinks that we should return to the American way of life. That was his quotation, even if that means some of you die. I mean what I just said. John Cabello wants to kill some of you. He's not worthy to hold an office even in the Illinois House, which is not, with a few exceptions, a body of distinction in the first place. But ironically, he was right about one thing. Structuring work so that some people die, so other people can get rich, that is the American way of life. Unintentionally, he was right about that part. Since the first enslaved Africans arrived at Jamestown 500 years ago, since indigenous people were subjected to pandemic diseases on purpose, so their wealth could be stolen, from the railroads to the mines to the hypertension and the alcoholism of the middle manager to what is happening right now in slaughterhouses and meatpacking plants across the country, death for profit is the American way. Which is why Sabbath as resistance is not petty. It is not small. It is sacred. Sabbath isn't about not being able to buy liquor on Sunday or not being allowed to do some other thing. That's what we call missing the point. The point is, you are not a product. You are a human being. In another passage in that book, Walter Brueggemann says that instead of calling the Sabbath holy time, we should call it human time. As Mary reminded us in her testimony, Jesus taught that the Sabbath was made for humankind to remind us, all of us, that we are not a product. We are not a cog. We are not what we produce. We are not our work. We are not our work. I have learned so much in recent years from disability advocates, people like my colleague Reverend Teresa Soto, and folks at RAMP here in Rockford and many others. And one of the most important things that Reverend Soto says often is this. They say, ableism is trash. It's a very short, simple phrase, easy to remember. Ableism is trash. Your worth isn't about what you produce. The Sabbath, a real Sabbath, is about remembering that your value is that you are a human being, that you are sacred no matter your age, your stage, your pre-existing conditions, or your potential comorbidity. What horrible words. You are holy. And it is time we stop engaging in human sacrifice for the God of wealth. I also love their phrase, ableism is trash, because it inverts the God of productivity's claim that people who are not productive for the capitalism machine are worthless. Literally, that disabled people are trash, which is what society seems to think a lot of the time, but that thought is wrong. It's ableism that's trash. That thought, otherwise, is unscriptural, unethical, and inhumane. Ableism is trash. People are holy. So what then? In this time when we thought we'd get a break, but instead some of us are working 5 jobs for which we might be being paid only for 1, and some of us aren't working at all, and some of us don't know what day it is, what then? What does the practice of Sabbath mean for us now? I think it means breathe. Breathe. Stop. Stop trying so hard. Stop pushing the needle so far. Perhaps a great silence would interrupt this sadness, this never understanding ourselves and threatening ourselves with death. I know, we found things to do. We bought the yeast because we did not want to face grief. Face the existential crisis of who we really are. Stare into the abyss, or even stare into the beauty that these feelings, this being sacred, this being human, really human, limited and beautiful and fragile and strong and incomplete and lovable, this being human is hard. When the distractions stop, we see it, we feel it, we know it. So we push, we fill the calendar, we even schedule our self-care, we plan our rest, what we'll do on this day and that day. And folks, I do this too. There is no judgment here. I may need to hear this more than any of the rest of you. Ministers have it very weird on this front. Sunday is a work day for me. It's been my work day for me my whole life. I try to take another day, Saturday usually, but there are errands and housework even now, and raising children sometimes, and then I have to stop and breathe. And remember, I am not what I do. Even I, who am deeply and profoundly called to the work that I do, this life of ministry, I am not my productivity. My worth is not about how empty my inbox is or how many calls I made today or even how good the sermon is or not is. And the point of Sabbath isn't to rest up so you can be better at your job. Let me say that again. The point of Sabbath isn't to be better at your job. That is not life's purpose. The point is to step off, to be human, to know you are loved by the world, the holy, that you are sacred, that in order to be worthy of love and respect, you have to do nothing. Nothing. You are worthy of love and respect, regardless of how much you produce. So is your neighbor. So is the family scraping by, or not scraping by, as the case may be. So is the one who's made bad choices, or did the best they could. So is everyone. Everyone. You don't have to be good at anything to be worthy of love and respect. You don't have to hit your quarterly targets or fill your retirement calendar with important obligations. You don't have to be a Pinterest mom or a cool dad. You don't have to go to every Zoom meeting. And you don't have to follow every bit of news of the world. You don't have to do anything. Neruda's point is that there is a kind of activity, a kind of noise that is about fear of death and therefore points to death. Brueggemann calls it anxiety and violence that we do to ourselves and to each other. And so the silence, the walk to reflect, the time to step aside, the Sabbath, whatever day it is, a whole day or just a moment, that time for sacred, non-productive presence is about being toward life, about the invitation to the deeper life, to honor the Sabbath and keep it human, that we might know who we are and what we are for. So I invite you. I welcome you. I invite myself to come along this journey that I'm on too. Let us breathe. Breathe. We don't have to prove a point. We don't have to do the thing to be loved, to matter, to be worthy, to protect ourselves from fear. I know it feels like that sometimes, but it isn't true. And I know that my words by themselves are likely not enough to make it so for you, but I invite you to practice, to try. Start slow, start small, breathe. Breathe. Say, I am worthy of love and respect without being productive. Say, you are worthy of love and respect without being productive. Breathe. Practice. We're going to spend all month on Sabbath, so you don't have to get it right the first weekend. That would be not the point, friends. Indeed, opposite the point. Give yourself permission to fail, to be confused, to not do a thing. Give someone else permission. Give someone else permission to be imperfect, to do it wrong, and still be okay. Breathe. Breathe. You are sacred and holy and human, and you don't have to do anything. Hush. Hush. The voice, still and small, yet sounds in storm and rain, and even on sunny days too. Hush. Hush. Somebody's calling your name. You are holy and worthy, and you don't have to do a thing. I'm going to sing Hush, an African-American spiritual, a song of spiritual power and emotional power about the worth and dignity of every person. Somebody is calling your name. The society ignores it and forgets. This is a song of deep power, so I invite you to sing at home along with Tim. We're going to sing verses 1, 2, and 5, and as it's recorded in our hymnal, we'll sing together, Hush.
Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? Sounds like freedom, somebody like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? I'm so glad trouble don't last always. I'm so glad trouble don't last always. I'm so glad trouble don't last always. Oh my Lord, what shall I do?
We are thinking of you and praying for you and hoping you are safe and well and managing and connected to those who love you and care for you. We'll extinguish the chalice here at the church, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we are together again. We'll begin the virtual coffee hour on Zoom in a few minutes, and we hope to see many of you there. The words for our benediction from the poet Wendell Berry, who you heard Mary mention about the peace of wild things. And this poem, which is among my favorites, reminds us that we are part of the world and not its masters. You need not carry it in your muscles and bones. Wendell Berry writes, "The love and work of friends and lovers belong to the task and are its health. Rest and rejoicing belong to the task and are its grace. Let tomorrow come tomorrow. Not by your will is the house carried through the night." We'll sing our closing blessing.
Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your way. Go our way in peace, wander as we may. Blessed is the path we take, may love guide us on our way.
Go in peace.